Hi everyone. In the past week, the market was led by the semiconductor related stocks. In particular, the CEOs of the major semiconductor industry companies, they all gave a same signal. So today, I want to talk about that. First, if you look at the market, there is a chart on the left showing this year's performance. And one thing is just flying by itself. It is not an individual stock, but an index. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index breaking through to new highs. It jumped more than 5% for the week. That is no joke. Nasdaq is up about 16.8% this year, but compared to this, Nasdaq almost looks cute. The semiconductor index is flying by itself. So right now, semiconductor and AI infrastructure stocks continue to lead the market. I also feel like I have been focusing on this area for last several weeks rather than talking about other area. That is how much the market mood is leaning toward this area right now, and attention seems to be concentrated here. So let's go through it one by one. First, as the importance of the AI agent era continues to be emphasized, it is also becoming a tailwind for the stock market. With what people call CPU re-rating or the CPU renaissance, related stocks have continued to surge. You can see it here. I only browse selected names, but starting with the leaders, Intel and AMD, this week ARM and Qualcomm also showed double-digit gains. As I briefly mentioned earlier, the CEOs of the strongest semiconductor companies, including Intel, AMD, and Nvidia, all emphasized the AI agent era and said that CPU is now becoming important. Let me talk about them one by one. In Intel's case, Intel's CEO gave interviews in several places this week. I brought only the common point and important part. Until now, if you look at the picture, I think it is easy to understand. During the training era, meaning the AI 1.0 era, when ChatGPT first came out, NVIDIA's GPU was much more important. But from now on, it will not only be GPU. CPU meaning that the CPUs that Intel and AMD make well will open a new era. He even emphasized that CPU may become more important than GPU. If you look at the numbers here, until now, when eight GPUs were needed, only one CPU was needed. But now it is becoming close to 1 to 1, and going further, it has now reversed to 4 to 1. If the real agentic AI era fully begins in the future, when full CPUs that Intel makes or are needed, only about one NVIDIA GPU may be needed. Because he emphasized that the importance is reversing and CPU is becoming more important, the market is also cheering this a lot. These days, NVIDIA's stock movement has been relatively weak, but Intel has been flying. You can feel that the market mood is changing a little like this. So as we move from AI 1.0 to AI 2.0, from so-called training time to the inference era, CPU is becoming more and more essential. This is what he emphasized. When GPT first came out, NVIDIA was much more important. But now, because the AI agent era is opening, where AI needs to perform many different tasks, companies like Intel and AMD are continued to stand out. So even though Intel has gone up a lot recently, I personally think you can see this as the early stage of CPU demand surge because the stock market moves very quickly and it will take a long time before this story reaches the broader public. The stock market tends to move ahead of the actual time in advance. So I think you can look at it that way. Next, let's talk about AMD. In AMD's case, CEO Lisa Su is currently in Taiwan. Taiwan has an important event starting in June. I'll talk about it later. So semiconductor issues may continue for a while. Over the weekend, NVIDIA's Jensen Huang also went to Taiwan early. That is because Taiwan is an important semiconductor production base. Korea is important too. Korea is important in memory semiconductors, but Taiwan has TSMC. because it has number one semiconductor production base and major ecosystem. AMD and Nvidia CEOs who need to make semiconductors quickly are moving competitively. As Lisa Su, AMD CEO, and Jensen Huang both went to Taiwan this time and then met the TSMC's CEO, asked for more CPU production, and announced the production expansion and record level investment. As both CEO announced this while signing cooperation agreement with several companies in Taiwan's semiconductor ecosystems, AMD's stock surged and Taiwan's stock market also broke through to a new high this week. Lisa Su CEO also says this: thanks to AI agent, the inference era is opening, and large-scale additional investment is needed. So those watching do not need to think like, oh dang, I guess I'm too late. No, even the Lisa Su says the semiconductor industry leader just 1 year ago they did not know. So you're not too late. Even the expert people, they even could not predict this demand. That is why they are now rushing to Taiwan as if their feet are on fire so to sign production contracts and additional expansion agreement. In the past, the growth rate of CPU semiconductors was around 3 to 4% on average over 5 years. It was not a high growth industry, but they now expect the growth rate over the next 5 years to accelerate to an annual average of 35%. They are seeing an enormous surge. So they even declared that AI infrastructure demand has entered a completely new expansion phase. That is why they announced a large scale investment. They probably judged that they could now increase production more confidently. From a semiconductor company's perspective, because they can feel certain demand, they decide to expand production. This was an important issue. Therefore, Taiwan's stock market also reached strongly to the large scale investment. Among this year's stock market returns, South Korea is overwhelming strong, but Taiwan, which is catching up in the second place, is also a semiconductor powerhouse. On a weekly basis, Taiwan surged more than 6% and broke through a new high. As I was watching, I also thought it was almost surprising how all the CEOs are all speaking with the same voice. They are talking about something very important right now. We cannot leave out Nvidia either. Nvidia also reported earnings this time, and what received more attention than anything else in the earning call was CPU. Let me briefly explain. This is important. Simply put, NVIDIA's Jensen Huang said this: I didn't know CPUs would sell this well. Same with Lisa Su. Because they are selling so well, NVIDIA had now originally sold CPUs separately, but now it has started selling them separately for the first time because customers want them. How did they sell them before? They sold GPU and CPU together as a package, like bundle. Well, now the customers want Nvidia start to sell it separately. It is actually great for Nvidia's perspective. Originally, they could just sell GPUs. Even Nvidia's existing semiconductors were already selling so well that there was supply shortage. But now a new market has opened. If they sell only this CPU separately this year, they expect 20 billion. To show how big that is, it is larger than Intel's annual revenue and almost similar to AMD's annual revenue. So Nvidia basically said, um, should we try selling it separately, and launched a new product, and right away it becomes an industry leading number one level size. So Nvidia is now number one GPU and number one CPU as well, given the overwhelming size. Symbolically, NVIDIA also directly delivered the beta CPU to major customers this time: SpaceX, OpenAI, Entropy, Oracle. You can feel who the major customers are, right? They also symbolically showed this delivery. This is how important it is. And for your reference, I brought something I noticed while organizing this. When you look at the forecast from major companies that make CPUs, AMD said the market may grow about 5 times by 2030 compared to now. So it expected the market size to be around 120 billion. ARM also said it may reach around 100 billion by 2030. It saw the market expanding a lot. But how much did Nvidia call out in this earning call? it doubled down. It called out roughly double. Nvidia said the market could become 8 times bigger by 2030, and not 100 billion or 120 billion, but up to 200 billion. So this week, CPU related stocks like Intel, AMD, ARM, and Qualcomm all moved sharply enough that you could say any stock with CPU exposure surged. You can see this as meaning that expectations for AI agents are becoming extremely large. So this mood is continuing. It is already hot, but it is getting even hotter. That is how you can look at it. Now, how far is this warmth spreading? It is reaching a company called ARM. This company also surged 46.5% for the week and broke through a new high after Nvidia said CPU will sell very well. We are doubling down and doubled in its market outlook. That is huge surge. For reference, Nvidia's CPU, the Vera CPU I mentioned earlier, is ARM based. ARM is a company that designs semiconductors. So Nvidia also needs ARM to make and sell this semiconductor. It plays an important role. The more Nvidia CPUs are sold, the more ARM earns licensing fees steadily in the background. That is how it surged sharply. You can see it breaking through a roughly 2 year long term box range and surging. It is rising like crazy. As I remember, Nvidia once tried to acquire this company, but I believed it failed because of the monopoly issues. Because ARM is a semiconductor design company, most big tech companies use ARM's designs. In simple terms, they pay money and use it quietly in the background. It is also a beneficiary of the custom semiconductor era. About a month ago, when ARM reported earnings, ARM benefits from custom semiconductors and also benefits from the CPU semiconductor renaissance. Now it is breaking through the ceiling again. At that time, ARM also said that if the AI agent era comes, a CPU renaissance will open and beneficiary will be itself. Beyond the AI agent, its devices expand into a non autonomous driving, robotics, and many other devices. ARM benefits because it receives more licensing fees as the number of semiconductor increases. And the more big tech companies make their own semiconductors, the company smiling quietly in the background is ARM. Even Mac Mini and Apple's Mac computers are based on the ARM design. Apple is redesigning them as its own chips, but at the moment, ARM is designing for Apple as well. I just mentioned this for reference to show that ARM plays a very important role in the background. Right now, from the CPU perspective of the AI agent era, you can see Intel and AMD as the leaders. And then this is spreading to the next names and the next names after that. Usually, number one stocks move first, then the number two stocks moves, and the warmth spreads to the number three and number four stocks. Right now, money is being released and investors are searching for related stocks, so they are surging. Qualcomm also makes CPUs, and there are also expectations that it will do custom semiconductors for data centers. Therefore, it was grouped with the CPU related stocks like Intel, AMD, ARM, and Qualcomm, and they all moved very higher. Additionally, if I summarize only the core of Google's annual event this time, the key point was that Google declared we will open the mass adoption of AI agent. These days, you can think of every company as talking about AI agent. So this is a term you should definitely know. For Google, it needs to provide these things more easily to ordinary people. Because even ordinary people who say I don't know what AI is, I don't know what CPU is, need to be able to use the service easily. Google launched a personal assistant service like Gemini Spark for this. Even when the computer is turned off, it works on its own 24 hours a day and even carries out instruction automatically. It is also make individuals feel less inconvenience. Right now, when you turn off your computer, AI agents do not really like run well. But through a service that serves the inconvenience, it seems Google wants more people to use this service. On top of that, do you know like Google search bar? It has been there for the last 25 years, but now instead of simply typing a question, it is changing into a mode where you directly talk with an AI agent. It seems that a huge change is happening like this. So it's like very worth paying attention to. Because Google is also emphasizing AI agent, it was not Google's stock that rose more, but AI agent related stocks like CPU semiconductors, memory semiconductors, AI infrastructures like Nokia and BlackBerry showed better movement. These days, when big tech announces something, it is not the big tech stocks that rises, but semiconductor stocks and AI infrastructure stocks that start moving. You can see this flow as continuing. So I have organized everything like this. If you do not know CPU, do not know like what an AI agent, I think the Philadelphia semiconductor ETF itself is enough. I'm not just saying this for no reason. Like Micron, AMD, Intel, the stocks I talked about today are all there. Qualcomm is there too. Nvidia, Broadcom, Marvell are also all there. Nothing is missing. They are all there. So it's collection of like leading stocks. So if you and then the stocks, the ETF return is around like 79% this year. So I think the return of the ETF overwhelming compared to picking most individual stocks this year. It is amazing. That is why I mentioned it. Okay, let's summarize like what I just said today. After GPU appeared, ChatGPT appeared. It was the GPU-led era. The Nvidia was leading the market, but now it is the CPU-led AI agent era. Of course, memory goes together as well, but because CPU has started to differentiate significantly in the AI agent era, CPU is getting more attention. And also the strongest semiconductor companies and industry leaders probably are not saying these things for no reason. So I think it would be great to watch carefully. There is an inflation report on Thursday, which is tomorrow for right now. The Treasury Secretary has already warned this inflation may come in very high once or twice. So the market may shake because of that. But personally, I don't think it is an issue to worry too much about. Thank you for watching my video today, and I'll continue to bring the good news and market insight. So please hit the like and subscribe to the channel, and so you do not miss any update. Let's all become rich this year. See you again in next video.